Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune, and Parker's in his studio. I am in a hotel. We brought our lovely baby swing with us in the background here. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the baby swing and the TV in the living room of the hotel. There's a 7-on-7 tournament up here in Tulsa. I will be up here. Parker will be up here a little bit tomorrow, but I'll be up here all weekend covering the event, DR7. Parker will then drive down to Houston, cover the Under Armour event. Depending on how my kids' stuff goes on Saturday and Sunday, there may be a possibility for me to make it down and help cover Houston. Very slight chance. So, but anyways, with my kid in the event, and there being so many people up here as far as OU targets, both of us will be here, and then we will hightail it down, or Parker will hightail it down there to Houston, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute, because that list, the Under Armour camp, is exquisitely deep as far as OU targets go. So lots of information on OU Insider VIP. But Parker, before we get to all the new playoff talk, all the money OU is going to be making from that new deal, the 14 teams. We'll talk about spring standouts. Also talk about guys that we think are going to break out. 3 on defense, 3 on offense. And OU's, I guess, are on bubble watch. And then on top of that, we will discuss some recruiting news as well. But you need to get to paying some bills. So
that's correct, folks. This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast is brought to you by Joy Mode, which makes all natural and science-backed supplements, which are dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. Now, Joy Mode is an alternative to the blue pill, but its worth doesn't start and stop right there, because it also supports cardiovascular health, athletic performance, and healthy blood pressure, among many other things. It comes in a palm-sized package, just like a pre-workout mix or an electrolyte powder. So all you have to do is mix it into 6 to 8 ounces of water, wait 45 minutes, and watch the magic unfold. Now, here are the real game changers. All ingredients have been assessed in peer-reviewed journals, and all ingredients have been studied and researched in humans. You'll never go back to prescription or over-the-counter drugs after trying Joy Mode, which contains clinically supported doses of arginine nitrate, L-citrulline, Panax, ginseng, and vitamin C. So want to see your confidence skyrocket? We'll go to usejoymode.com for 20% off with code INSIDER. That's 20% off and free shipping with code INSIDER at usejoymode.com. Joy Mode, ingredients with integrity. Now, this episode is also brought to you by the good folks at Mando. Fellas, you ever lift a little too hard or just forget to apply your daily deodorant and get hit by a truckload of BO? Or does that 3-in-1 shampoo leave you needing a second shower just a few hours after the first? Well, from the founders of Lumi, Mando Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a brand new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has long-lasting 72-hour odor control that actually stops odor before it starts. The best part is you can put Mando everywhere: pits, packages, feet, skin folds, back, knees, everywhere. And to top it off, Mando's cologne quality scents were created with men in mind. Pro tip: try their best-selling scent, Bourbon Leather. It is a game changer, and to this, I can personally attest. I use the Bourbon Leather body wash. It is money. Gets my stamp of approval. Now, once you experience fresher underarms, a fresher package, and fresher feet, you'll never go back. Here's the special offer. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. Use code INSIDER at shopmando.com. shopmando.com.
All right. There you go. Parker, let's talk. What do we want to start with? Do we want to start with the playoff stuff? Because I think that's probably the most pertinent stuff that happened over the last few days, with, I guess, the conferences getting together and signing off, where the SEC and the Big Ten will accrue 58% of the revenue from ESPN, television rights, all that type of stuff when it comes to the playoffs. Big 12, ACC, I guess G5, all that, they will divvy out the rest. I believe the Big 12 per team will get 12 million a piece, whereas the SEC and the Big Ten will accrue, I think it was around 600 million per conference, which would divvied out to about 21 plus $1 million per team. As far as that's extra, folks. I just want to make that perfectly clear. That's extra. I thought the interesting kicker to that, on top of the 14 team playoff that's going to start in 2026, barely got into the damn 12 team before it expanded to, we haven't even got to play one playoff of 12 before it's 14, which is just insane, but shows you television controls everything. The kicker is that, like, from my understanding, Parker, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, teams don't get per bowl money now, though. Like, so if you go into, like, all that's kind of gone. Did I understand that right? Or am I misconstruing
I
this?
don't
Or
even, there's so many moving pieces here. And I find it all quite obnoxious. I think we're getting further and further away from what college football needs to be structurally, particularly with regard to the postseason. Because, like, I think, and I've said this a long time, I think the sweet spot, if you're going to do a playoff, is either to just go with 8 teams, because I think that is quite clearly about what the upper tier of college football in any given year is. You cannot convince me that in any particular year there are more than 7, 8 teams capable of winning a national championship. Generally, the top tier of the sport is very clear, and it's anywhere between 2 and 7 or 8. So I think an 8-team playoff would be perfect. If that's not what you want to do, well, then you go full March Madness. You make a 64-team bracket and you eliminate the conference championship games, and it's utter chaos for a month and a half straight, which is obviously never going to happen. But
no, the play, they wouldn't even have a roster by the time that ended. Like, everybody would be out. Like,
well,
could you imagine that, though?
yes, and
Road
honestly, like,
management in the middle of college football playoff.
it will never happen, but logistically, it's not all that far fetched. The national champion this year will have to play 16 games. The national champion, if you were to go that route with a 64-team playoff, would play 18 games when all is said and done, which is what they play in the NFL. So it's not, it's not asking above and beyond what these players and what these rosters are capable of. But for many reasons, I don't think we'll ever get to that point. But here's the problem. And Greg Sankey made some comments on the record a few days ago that seemed to advocate for a larger playoff because there would be more teams in the Power Four. That's what it is now, the Power Four, that would get their opportunity to take a swing at the big boys and potentially win a national title. And I think that's just the wrong approach. Like, that's not good PR. That's not the message that people want to hear, because here's what makes March Madness great. Selection Sunday is 2 days away, so this is a very timely conversation. What makes college basketball's postseason so great is the underdog stories that it has produced over the years. All of us are always cheering for our respective teams, right? Oklahoma fans are always cheering for Oklahoma. But regardless of whether Oklahoma is in the dance or not, every single human being, every single basketball fan that watches the tournament, what do you watch it for? What moments do you remember? The moments you remember are the moments when an underdog topples one of the heavy favorites, one of the top dogs. And I think about the seminal moments that I've had over the years watching college basketball in March. I don't think about, well, there are some exceptions. Sometimes you get an amazing game in the national championship, and that becomes a lasting memory. Villanova and North Carolina in 2016 is a great example of that.
Yeah, that was a great one. Yep.
But I think about games like 14th seeded Northwestern State over Iowa in 2006, or Norfolk State over Missouri in 2012 as a 15 seed. UMBC, Fairleigh Dickinson, Middle Tennessee out of nowhere in 2015 over a number 2 seed Michigan State team. Those are what you remember. You remember Butler as what, an 8-9 seed going all the way to the national title game in 2010. Gordon Hayward's shot fallen just short, well, not fallen short, but taking just the wrong carom off the backboard at the buzzer, leaving Butler on the short end of the stick in the national title game against Coach K and Duke. Those are the things that you remember. Those are the moments that live on in your memory. And so I don't think that for the average college football fan, putting the message out there that, oh, 14-16 team playoff, that's going to allow the fourth or fifth place team in the Big Ten to have a shot at winning the national championship. No, like that doesn't matter to people. It'll matter individually to select fan bases in a given year where their team is the last team in the field. But odds are, in general, whatever team ends up the 15th or 16th team in the field is going to get taken behind the woodshed by whoever is the number 1 or number 2 seed. Right? Again, we will not be immune from the occasional first round upset, a 14 over well, I guess it wouldn't be a 14 over a 1 because the couple of several teams would get a bye, but a 14 over 5 or whatever it would be. You'll see an upset like that every now and again, but it won't be the norm. And even so, football is not a sport that is as conducive or even could be as conducive to a legitimate Cinderella, a team that not only wins a game, but wins multiple, pulls multiple upsets in a row on their way to the national championship game or the national semifinal or whatever it may be. So you can miss me, and I think a lot of folks, with the promise of the fourth or fifth best team from a given Power 4 conference making the playoff field as a reason why we need expansion. I don't find that appealing at all.
I don't think. I think 14 is ridiculous right now.
It's weird too. Like, it's such an odd number.
16 would have been the perfect, like, if you're going to do it, just make it 16 and just be done with it. Like 16 would have been the perfect way to go. But I was really on board. Like 12 wasn't a number I liked. I was 8 or 16. Either make it small or make it big. Like, don't go in between. I think 12 is just such an intermediate number. I think 14, you're just trying to tease to the 16. I think eventually you do get to 16. I really do. But you get to 16, how bad does that really dumb down and dilute the football season? Like,
yeah.
Okay, so now you can be 8-4 and make the playoffs, like, because that's where you're headed. I'm okay with 9-3 when you have Florida or OU schedule, like that's fine. Or whoever has to play Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Oregon, and Washington all in the same season in the Big Ten, right? Like, somebody's 9-3 with that schedule, cool. 8-4, which means that you've probably lost. Most likely, it's not always going to, land out in that direction, but 90% of the time, it's going to land out where you've lost to, let's say, OU schedule. They've lost to Alabama, LSU, Texas, and whoever else is on this schedule that's tough. Just, I guess, at Auburn, let's say you lost your 4 toughest games. That's essentially what you're telling me, like 8-4. That, I don't care if that's who you lost to, and that's the reason why you lost 4 games. You don't deserve to be in the playoffs, because that means you beat a bunch of mediocre teams to get to that 8, right? If you lost to the best teams on your schedule, how do you deserve to be in above people that maybe they upset 1 or 2 of those teams, right? And they're 9-3. It just, maybe they don't have as tough a schedule, but they beat Alabama and LSU, and those were the only 2 tough games on their schedule, but they beat their tough teams. Yeah, maybe they choked away against some smaller teams, but if they win the big ones, I've always felt that way. Big wins should be held in higher regard than big losses. And I know there's extenuating circumstances where that isn't really the case and isn't always the case, but you really are diluting things when it gets to that point. Again, if we're going 14, just go 16 and just say we're not moving from that point. You're not moving from that point. You and I both know it's going to end up at 16. Because what's going to end up happening is that the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get all pissed off that Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, LSU, one of those teams got held out because they were 9-3 and they were ranked 13th. And it's going to be, well, they were better than Liberty or whoever, G5 or whoever got in. That's not right. Or ranked 15th, excuse me, not 13th, 15th. And so what's going to happen is they're going to get together. They're going to say, we're going to take our ball and go home because we don't like how this is done. And everybody's going to pander to the SEC and Big Ten. Once again, they're going to say, okay. 16 teams. Next year, it'll be 16. That way you guys get your 4th and 5th ranked teams in your division into the damn playoff. Like, because that's where it's headed. So as long as you finish in the top core of the SEC and the Big Ten, you're going to get in. You see that? Like that is where we're headed. Top 4 in the Big Ten and the SEC, you're in. Everybody else, the other 8 teams, whatever. And there's going to be times where there'll be 10. There'll be 5 from both. And then the other ones will just have to get lucky to get in.
And it's a double-edged sword, right? Because when you expand the playoff, sure, there is more money. There are more impactful end of season matchups with obvious implications. But as you mentioned, Brandon, it naturally dilutes the importance of the regular season. And you see this phenomenon in college basketball. How many folks are there that don't watch a single minute of college basketball, save for their team, right, until the tournament rolls around? People don't care about the college basketball regular season unless they're just straight diehards for the sport. And so that's the trade-off that you have to accept. It's the trade-off that the powers that be in college basketball accepted so many years ago when they formed the tournament. And initially, it wasn't a 64-team tournament. Well, when it became a 64-team tournament, there had to be a knowledge, and I imagine there was, that, hey, like, less people are going to care what goes on in the regular season unless they know that, or I'm sorry, with the exception of their team. Less people are going to care what goes on in the regular season with the exception of following the team that they root for. And I think the appeal and I think where college basketball and the administration and the folks with power in college basketball, where they've walked the line correctly, is that they've realized the way that the tournament is structured with an auto bid in every conference, everybody has a shot, right? And so it's not completely, I mean, it is a meritocracy in the sense that you have to win your conference tournament to get to the field of 68.
Yeah.
But even so, fans of a program like, who just made the tournament, Longwood or Drake or College of Charleston, they have reason to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
I'm so much. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They'll stay engaged with college basketball throughout the regular season because they understand that if their team wins the conference tournament, then they're going to get a spot in the field of 68 and they'll have the chance to go and upset a Purdue or a Tennessee or a Duke or a Kentucky. The problem is, and we already see the chasm and the balance of power shifting so much in college football between the haves and the have-nots, the P4s and the rest. How do you convince fans of, pick a group of 5 school, Bowling Green? How do you convince fans of San Diego State? How do you convince fans of Boise State that there is as much luster in watching college football as there was before? Because at the end of the day, well, my team is never going to make, they're never going to have a chance to play for a national championship. They're never going to
Mhm.
have that opportunity unless they are the textbook definition of perfection in the regular season. For those folks, the second their team loses a game, well, then to a certain extent, they're checked out. And fans are fans. They're not going to check out completely, but their interest is going to diminish, just as Oklahoma fans' interest diminished in 2022 when their team floundered down the stretch to a 6-7 record.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you're looking out for the little guy, and that's my issue with it, none of this is looking out for the little guy. If you're looking out for the San Diego States and the Boise States and the
Is
Bowling
Longwood the
Greens,
little guy?
yeah, exactly. Longwood is the little guy. If you're looking out for those schools and their fans, you're not expanding the playoff just to try and jam more SEC and Big Ten and ACC and Big 12 schools into the field.
You want to jam more Longwood into the field, right?
Okay, Brandon. Come on now.
All right. All right, I'm done. I'm done with the immaturity stuff. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, it is. It's too much, and I'm not. I'm not a big fan of the G5s getting in there because I just think that it's just a waste when they're going to be playing. And I've had multiple people. I've had multiple people text me our argument that one pod where I said that is just ridiculous. That G. Why don't they just have their own little playoff over there and do their own little thing? Because yeah, there may be that one time where one goes beat 16 every 30 years, but it's just going to be a ball beating every time that they go. And yeah, I just realized what I just said after the Longwood stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be bad though. Like that Liberty team last year going to Georgia and playing them in Athens would have looked like the Orange Bowl.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
With the depleted Florida State. Like it would have been awful.
Yeah, but conversely, you think about the opportunity that a team like Boise State had in 2006 against Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl.
They were all like 30-year-old seniors. So yeah, I get your point, but
yeah, or UCF in 2017 against Auburn in the Cotton Bowl, right? Or even a team that didn't win but played a competitive game. PJ Fleck and Western Michigan, I think it was 2014. They went undefeated and they played in a New Year's Six. The issue is what does a major bowl game like that matter moving forward if you've just got a playoff field full of a bunch of SEC and Big Ten teams and maybe there's one spot reserved for a group of 5 program? What happens to a team like, I know SMU fans felt shafted this past year when they didn't get the New Year's Six auto bid and it went to Liberty instead. What about a team like SMU, man, that has a really good regular season, 2 quality losses, and they end up, I think most would agree that where SMU was by season's end, that they were capable of at the very least competing with some of the New Year's Six teams across the sport.
Yeah.
But they didn't get that opportunity because there was one group of 5 team, one that outperformed them.
Yeah. On another note, let's talk about spring. All right, 3 guys that you can see as breakouts on offense and defense and why. Just go offense first.
You want to start offense? Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I feel the need to just go ahead and define our terms up front here. Are we talking breakout guys in the sense that
everybody's talking about them, they have a chance to start and they have a chance to make plays?
Okay, well, yeah. But breakout in the sense that they haven't done it before at the collegiate level or haven't done it before at OU. Because the first name I want to throw out is Deion Burks, right? But is that really a breakout guy? Seeing as how he excelled at
I mean,
Purdue
he
last year.
is in Norman. No, I get what you're saying, but he is in Norman. So if you
Okay.
want to throw Deion Burks
Yeah.
out there, go for it.
Yeah. Give me Deion Burks. First guy on my list. Folks are raving about that guy.
Mhm.
It's not hard to figure that when you take somebody like that was so productive last year at Purdue, and now you insert him into a system where he's got weapons alongside him that are going to take the focus off of just him. You give him a quarterback like Jackson Arnold, he's going to be highly productive within the confines of the Oklahoma offense, and I expect that. The other breakout guy, well, and his breakout won't be as conspicuous, but the other guy that immediately springs to mind is Fabechi Wiwu, right? That's how you
Is
pronounce
that how
his
you
name.
pronounce Weewoo?
Wiwu. And I would never have guessed that in 100
No,
tries.
because everybody I talk to, sources even call it Weewoo.
Yes.
So,
It's Wiwu in the Oklahoma spring roster pronunciation guide, as bizarre as that is. Uh, I think that kid's going to be a hoss at guard for Oklahoma. I've already
mhm.
handed a starting job to him. I think Sexton and Wiwu are the two guys that you can count on with certainty seeing in the starting five for Oklahoma. I don't necessarily know. I think I have a good idea how the other three positions shake out right now, but I don't know. I feel like I know with Fabechi Wiwu. I feel like you're going to see him starting at guard and excelling for Oklahoma. And then if I had to pick a third, I would probably say I'll go with the freshman. I'll say Devon Mitchell because I think he's the most impressive specimen in that tight end room. And there are guys that are taller, guys that are older, guys that, have traits that make them exciting, be that Bauer Sharp and his raw athleticism or Jake Roberts and his elder statesman factor and familiarity with Seth Luttrell's offense. Cade McIntyre, some of the things he showed last year, both on the practice field and on Saturdays when he was given the chance to play. But even so, man, I just think Devon Mitchell is too good to not play as a freshman at Oklahoma. I don't know what capacity he plays. Maybe he doesn't necessarily start, but I think that's a guy that makes a productive dent at tight end. Those are my three.
Okay. As weird as it is, I'm going to say Javante Barnes.
I like that.
Yeah, he finally is healthy. He's a guy that we've seen be productive, and he had a really good freshman year, but last year just was injury riddled. Just it was awful. It sucked for him. It sucked for the fans. It sucked for the team. It sucked for DeMarco Murray because he had high hopes for him. So it's yeah, I like Javante Barnes. I think he is going to be that kind of the guy that supplants Sawchuk whenever Sawchuk needs a breather and be the thunder to his lightning, if you will. Um, this you said Bauer Sharp, didn't you?
I did not say Bauer Sharp. No.
I'm gonna go Bauer Sharp, and
Okay.
I've heard nothing but good things about it. Continue to hear it. He's new to the tight end position, only played it for a year. Yeah, it was at the FCS level, but he was talented enough and had enough that Nick Saban, before he retired, was going after him. So that's all I need to know is that if the GOAT liked him and OU ended up with him, he's probably going to be an all right tight end. So I'll go with Bauer Sharp. I think as he continues to grow in his understanding of that position and get stronger and understanding how to block and understanding how to run routes and do it properly, I think he is going to be, with his athleticism, with his length, just his understanding of the quarterback position in terms of what they want from a tight end because he was a quarterback. I think that's going to help OU out substantially. And then my third one, I'm probably like I know it seems very kind of crazy for me to say this because I think I should go offensive line, right? I should. I'm not going to. I'm going to go receiver. And I'm going to say Jaquaze Petaway. That I know Deion Burks is there. I get, and I know some fans are going to hate this. Gavin Freeman's going to play. He's going to play. OU likes him. The coaches like him. When he's consistent, he's a good player. He made some plays for Oklahoma last year. So I get that there's some people that are upset with him because of the punt returns and all that, but whatever. Like the kid can ball. We've seen it. Parker, you and I have both seen it live and in person, whether the high school level or college. So like it's the kid can ball. There's a reason why he's at Oklahoma. There's a reason why he played a lot. But Jaquaze Petaway was so highly ranked. You saw some of what he could do last year when he was given the chance early on. And then obviously the Texas were the reverse that ended up being called back because they said it was a forward lateral instead of a side or backwards lateral. So I still think he has a lot of potential to be just an elite inside slot receiver. Like elite. As he gets stronger, he continues to keep his speed. He starts to understand the offense and what's being asked of him, the routes, the timing down. I know that he and Jackson Arnold have a really good rapport. So I think that's also going to help out for him with him as well. So I like Jaquaze Petaway, Bowers Sharp, and Javante Barnes. They're a little unorthodox, but those are my three breakouts during the spring that I think are going to, on the offense that I think are going to make plays for OU this season, come August and September. All right, defense, Parker.
Defense. Okay. I think it's kind of hard not to put David Stone on the list, right? And I feel like that's probably one where we'll have some overlap. David Stone to me is, he's a 5-star. Are you going to keep that dude out of the rotation in year one? I don't think there's any way, not with the Sooners' current depth or lack thereof at defensive tackle. So give me David Stone all day long. The other guy for me on the defensive front that I'm really, really excited for is Caden Woolard. I do not think people understand how good that kid is. Brandon, he was 9th in the entire country last year in pressures. And okay, sure, it was at Miami of Ohio. I don't care. That'll transfer, especially given that he's 6'5", 260 plus pounds. I'm real excited to see what he can bring to that defensive end room and how much hell he can raise off the edge. And then number 3 is tough because I think there are several guys on the defensive side of the ball that you'll see that maybe, you look at the depth chart and you're like, well, he's pretty far down there right now. For instance, Eli Bowen's a guy I expect to get snaps here and there at cornerback right now. I think Jocelyn Malaska, just given the fact that he hasn't been fully healthy through 2 years, if he is 100% this fall, he's definitely a dude that has tested well enough and has the requisite athleticism to be a player at cornerback. But if we're talking breakouts, if we're talking legit breakouts, then I feel like a very natural choice for number 3 has got to be Peyton Bowen, because we saw flashes last year. We saw him impact the game on special teams. Defensively, all in all, he actually didn't play a ton outside of a couple games early in the season where he had high snap counts. He really didn't play a ton defensively. I think naturally you can expect as a sophomore that he will play a lot more and impact the game a lot more, because if you've watched Peyton Bowen for any amount of time, you know what he's capable of when unleashed in the defensive backfield and just allowed to roam. And I think Oklahoma's going to do that with him. I think Brandon Hall's going to have an additional measure of comfort in doing that with him a year older and a year wiser. And I truly think he's going to have a memorable year.
All right. I you took David Stone,
You can
and
take
I
him.
don't
We can
I don't
double
want
up.
to I don't want to double up, so I'm trying to go different. I had Peyton Bowen as well, but um, here's what I'll do because I have some other. I think defense is where like if you make a pick, I don't think you can go wrong in a lot of instances because they've recruited so well on the defensive side of the ball the last three cycles. So I'll start with Des Malone. I continue to hear very good things about him. He has played really well to start spring. He's made plays. There's people that really, really like him. I've had multiple sources within the Switzer Center and outside the Switzer Center that have seen things say that guy has come in. He's taken to the culture. He's taken to the coaching. He wants to be great, and he's willing to listen and do everything that needs to be done to make sure that happens. So he's come off hot already to start spring and throughout the winter workouts. And remember, people that don't know who Des Malone is, it's Dejan Malone. He's from San Diego State. His cornerback was one of the top cornerbacks in the G5 level last year. I think, in the last 2 or 3 years, he's given up one touchdown in like 400 and something attempts or something like that. Isn't that correct? It was like some crazy stat line that was given out about him. It was
Mhm.
insane. So he is really, really good. And they're hoping that he and Gentry Williams can be that piece for you. And you notice I didn't say Woody Washington. If you want to know what's happening there as of now, you can go to ouinsider.com VIP and find out because he may have moved positions just for a little bit, maybe. Um, the second I will go with, this is going to be kind of weird because, again, Woolard was another guy that I really had in mind, but I'm being kind of unorthodox in the way I'm doing this because, yeah, some of these guys have played, but they haven't been just game changers for OU just yet. R. Mason Thomas. Yeah, we continue to hear, oh, he's going to do this, do that, do this, do that. Well, both of his ankles were just jacked up last year. He couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't get on the field. He finally started to get on the field the last few games, and he was completely healthy in the Alamo Bowl, and he was just causing havoc in that backfield during that game. Do you remember that? Like
Mhm.
he was after him, man. I think he ended up with one sack, but he almost had 4 or 5 other ones. And so I like our Mason Thomas. If he can stay healthy, he's putting on weight. He's going to weigh over 250 pounds. He's about 6'1", 6'2". So he's not like PJ Adebawara where PJ is so tall that 240, 250, 260 isn't really a lot of weight on him. 250, 255 on our Mason Thomas with his frame, that's where you want him because he can keep his quickness, he can keep his agility, he can keep everything that makes him great right there within his skill set at that weight. So I like R. Mason Thomas. So I got R. Mason Thomas, I got Des Malone, and then my third, again, unorthodox a little bit, but I think I'm going to go Deshaun McCullough. And the reason why, yeah, he played Cheetah last year, but he got hurt and he was kind of in and out the last, 4 games with that knee and ankle. And he ended up, you know, cleaning out his knee before spring. He may not go all the way through spring, but he'll be available at some point to go full go, right? He's moved to because they're going to run a lot of 3-3-5, so he's not going to strictly stay at the nickel and at the cheetah. He's going to play some outside backer, some jack backer, whatever you want to call it, Sam, uh, that type of backer for OU right now in that 3-3-5. He's a great blitzer, Parker. Like the dude knows how to blitz. He knows how to play in the box. Like he's really good at it. He was always struggled to cover in space because of his length, because of his size. It just, I don't know that Cheetah really fit him. I think Sam Backer is going to fit him great. It's going to allow him to continue to play in space some and use his length as he gets better at that. But it's also going to allow him to be able to blitz and OU not really lose a lot of coverage, right? Because he's going to be better in the box than he is out. So I think he's going to end up being a 5-sack guy this season. And I don't think that's a stretch. It sounds crazy when you think about 5 sacks, but really 5 sacks isn't a whole lot when you're potentially playing 14 games. Like that's not a lot of sacks considering you're going to be in like 1,000 snaps before the season's over, right? Like if you play 50 snaps a game, right? You're pushing upwards. What would that be? 700. I mean, that's a lot of snaps, right? So if you can get 5 sacks out of that, that's great. That'd be great for him. So I like that. And just kind of an extra guy I'll throw out there. There is a part of me that feels like Jacoby Johnson's going to do something. I don't know what I continue to hear about McCarty Vickers. We continue to hear about Josiah Wagner. But at the end of last year, we heard stupid thumbs up, man. Got me again. We heard about Jacoby Johnson last year and just the growth that he was doing had made. So I think at some point this spring, the light bulb's going to come on and he's going to play really well and he's going to get into that rotation. So those will be my 3 / that extra additional potential breakout for the spring on the defensive side. Is there any news that you want to share that you've heard? I've heard Ozaida's taken first team reps.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard Daniel Akinkumi's taken some first team reps at tackle. And obviously both are freshmen. One's redshirt, the other one's just a freshman. Also, really hope Akinkumi's okay because that tweet today with the Uber driver and his knee seemed kind of scary.
Yeah, thankfully it didn't look too serious, and obviously
Yep.
that is the hope, is that there are no lingering effects from that accident. Gosh, I really hope Heath Ozida does well because, man, I just remember what a meltdown there was when Bill Bedenbaugh offered and took his commitment in June of 2022 because Oklahoma was not recruiting well at the time.
Nope.
I shouldn't say they weren't recruiting well. They weren't ranked very highly in the recruiting rankings at that time. I think they were like 38th. And here was Bill Bedenbaugh offering a kid that basically insta-committed, some 3-star from Snoqualmie, Washington. And I remember all the messages I got, all the comments on the message boards were like, how on earth? Like, this is the state of OU recruiting. Really? This is the Venables era. This is what we're in for. Well, you fast forward 3 months, and obviously OU is right there in the national top 10 in recruiting once again. So there was obviously no cause for worry there. But just because nobody seemed to like Heath Ozida even a little bit when he committed, which I found astonishing because when you watched his tape, he was a dominant player. But nobody seemed to love that kid or give him the love that he deserved when he committed. Really hoping for his sake, obviously, and just for the sake of the narrative arc that he's able to make an impact for Oklahoma this year. But there'll be plenty of competition on that offensive line. There is no question about it. A lot of guys in competition for just a few spots.
Yeah. Again, Ozida, I hope that he gets in that rotation as well. You know, I also want to see Sammy Omosigho. I just
I
hope
love Sammy.
he's
Such a good
successful at
dude.
Sam Backer, right? Like, and Sam is playing Sam,
How about
right?
that?
I think that's awesome. So, yeah, there's yeah, again, if you want a lot of this stuff, we try not to overindulge you guys in this stuff because our members, like, they deserve to have a lot of this stuff. So we've got a lot of VIP team stuff from spring that is just loaded content that's on our VIP board. The OU basketball program. Obviously, Porter Moser isn't going to go to DePaul. We saw that. They've seemed to make their hire. But do you get a sense that there's still some discontent between OU and Moser, and that this thing isn't over, even if it's not DePaul?
I definitely don't get the sense, just in talking to sources, and obviously our guy Brody at OUinsider.com is on top of this in way greater detail than I am. But I do get the sense that things aren't the rosiest within the program. It's not a 5-alarm fire. Don't get like people hear that and they instantly, I think a lot of people will think 5-alarm fire. It's not. But there is definitely a little bit of discord. I think that's more between Moser and not even really a few players, but more so the families of a few of those players that are kind of discontent. And so it's one of those things that you have to deal with and be prepared to face in this day and age, because we know basketball players tend to have personalities, right? And
Right.
NIL has only exacerbated that. And NIL has exacerbated a lot of things with regard to the parents and the families, right? And so, look, Porter's done a fine job this year. Obviously, he's going to be back for year 4 at Oklahoma unless DePaul was the LSU here and we just don't perceive the USC at this point. But all indications at this time are that Porter's going to be back for year 4. And I understand that maybe folks are indifferent about that. Maybe some folks are disappointed with that. End of the day, this team was supposed to finish 12th out of 14 teams in the Big 12, or in the Big 12 this year, and here they are on the doorstep of making the NCAA tournament. And on Sunday, unless we have an astronomical amount of bid thieves over the next couple of days, they're going to be in, and they probably will be pretty safely in, i.e., not right there on the bubble. So, look, OU basketball is in a fine place right now. It's not in a great place. It's not in a bad place. It's in a fine place. Porter's going to have some rebuilding to do via the transfer portal this offseason. That much I am confident in asserting. But hey, he returned 3-4 scholarship guys from last year's team to this year's team, and they won 20 games. So you got a coach that can pull the right strings when he needs to, and time will tell if it works out to fans' liking. I think the natural tendency is for fans to have a little bit higher expectation than what is probably reasonable. That's why we have the term fan, right? It's derived from fanatic, and that's part of the nature of fanaticism is you tend to get your expectations elevated a little bit beyond what is or what ought to actually be expected. So it'll be a long off season for OU basketball fans, because they're going to no doubt be eager to see what
That's where I was about to go, because I was going to ask you this. Yeah, I'm going to ask that question. You may not be thinking about it right now. Can he hold on to the roster? If he stays, can he hold on to that roster? Because if
the
that
entire
roster
roster.
returns,
No, like
their best players can he. Okay, let me ask you this: is Javon McCall playing at OU next year, in your opinion? What about Milos Uzan?
I'm going to plead the fifth on those ones.
Okay. What about Owe?
I'd look.
See, okay. So if you're Joe C and that starts to happen, what do you do? Do you go, dude, are we going to have to go through this again where you have to redo the whole roster? At some point, coaches leave, players continue to leave. You're still here. What's the common denominator of the 3 seasons?
Well, yeah, the common denominator has been turnover. However, and
I was going to say Porter Moser.
Well,
and
yes,
everybody
Porter Moser.
leaving.
Obviously, he's yeah, he is one of the lone constants here. But the common denominator through 3 years has been turnover. I expect there to be some more turnover this offseason. But if you're winning, does it matter? And that's going to be the challenge for Porter Moser. You had a successful year by most accounts this year, winning 20 games, getting to the NCAA tournament, especially relative to preseason expectations. That is a successful year. But can you sustain it in year 4 and beyond? Is this going to be the blip, or is this going to be the start of the new trend?
Okay, so again, I know you're pleading the fifth on this, but I still want to debate this for a second. Why why put the program through that again though? Why look, at some point people are going to catch on that everybody keeps showing up and then leaving, showing up and leaving, showing up and leaving, even down to the assistant coaches. So like, and I think Porter Moser is a great coach. I think he's one of the better coaches in college basketball. Sometimes you just don't fit. And I'm not sure he fits. I just don't know that he fits this situation long term. And that's why you see so much turnover with the assistants and with the players. And at some point, when the portal opens back up, it's going to go, okay, why are you needing to replace this guy when he was just Javion McCullough, for example, if that happened? And or Milos Uzan or all these guys, like again, if that happened, why do you have to continue to replace all these guys year after year? Why do you have to continue to replace 9 of 12 roster spots?
Yeah, well, okay. And I
Is that
think
not
those
a
are
fair question?
no, it's absolutely. I think those are valid questions and they need to be asked, right? And I guess where you can explain that away, or at the very least attempt to, and I think it's a rather rational explanation in the end, is okay, you look at some of the assistants that have left. KT Turner went to go be a head coach.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Dildy landed a job at Duke, right? So some of these departures that he's had on staff have been for objectively better opportunities. And so can you fault those guys? Are their departures necessarily indicative of a clash of styles with Moser? No, I think you can explain some of those away, certainly. As far as the roster goes, let me ask you this. As much as it may be a concern on paper
Mm-hmm.
that Moser's style just doesn't really appeal to these guys. And again, that's kind of the direction that I lean. Like, I think there's a lot of truth to that. But if I'm playing devil's advocate, allow me to suggest that the amount of turnover that Oklahoma has experienced through 2 going on 3 years of the Moser era might just be, to some extent, a byproduct of the mercenary culture that has taken root across college basketball. I.e., you get a lot of 1-year hired hands. You get a lot of guys that you rent via the transfer portal, especially now, Brandon, where there's no longer restriction on how many times a student athlete can transfer.
Yeah,
This
as
is
of
something that's going
yesterday.
to,
Yeah.
like, yes, Oklahoma has dealt with it more so than most programs. And I don't want to act like that hasn't happened. Like, yes, Moser has had more turnover than the average Power 4 basketball coach. I guess it's Power
But
6.
then you look at Venables and the
But
mercenaries haven't happened. Like they stay.
okay, well,
They
sure.
stay.
But again, roster size 85 in football, 12 in basketball. And
And my argument is harder to keep 85 than it is 12.
I, I don't know that I
Oh, it's
agree with that.
facts.
No,
What?
I don't think I agree with
Okay,
that.
expound.
Well, because again, you're going to have more resources committed to football than you are to basketball at a place like Oklahoma. So a guy pops off,
Sure.
has a really strong individual season. You'll have a better chance to retain him because you know the NIL funds will be there, right? And you will make certain concessions to make sure they are there. But on the basketball side, smaller rosters come with additional perils because I think you've already begun to see this with some small school guys that have enjoyed excellent individual seasons and their campaigns have ended at their respective schools.
Mhm.
That NIL situation isn't what it could be for a guy of their talent level. They're jumping in the portal, or they just want
Yeah.
an opportunity to shine on a bigger stage. They're jumping in the portal. And so for Moser and for Oklahoma, I think a portion of the retention predicament is going to come down to the fact that they're not going to have the spending capability in the NIL department as some of their peer schools across the country. And that is going to be an ever present problem. And that's not Moser's fault, right? So, yes, to some extent, I think he is culpable for some of the roster turnover to this point. But I also don't think it's all on him. I think it's just a consequence of the direction that collegiate athletics and particularly the sport of basketball is headed.
Right. For me, he needs he needs to keep at least 70% of this roster, and he needs to keep at least one of the three, or he needs to keep two of the three names that I brought up. Like that has to happen, and obviously NIL is going to play a factor in that, I'm sure. But heading into the SEC, I will bet money that OU will be, and the donors will be willing to pony up stuff to make sure that they don't look like fools when they go play Kentucky or whoever as they navigate the waters of SEC basketball instead of Big 12 basketball, particularly in year one. Like you don't want to look like you don't want to look foolish. You want to look like you can hack it with the best of them. And I'm willing to bet OU is going to do all they can to make that work. So if you can return this squad next year, you look really, really talented and really good because you're going to be very experienced, very talented. You add just one low post piece that can score to this roster that you have right now. An athletic low post, I might add. And this team becomes pretty scary, to be honest with you. But, you got to go do that. And that takes NIL. So we'll see. Real quickly, we'll end it real right. What are you most excited about this weekend between the DR7, which is going to have Center 7, I think, has 6 OU offer guys on their roster at least. C4 is bringing up a bunch of 26, 27, 25 guys that OU is either looking at and or have offered. I think there's 4 or 5 offers on C4's roster. Obviously, you're going to have Caden Jones there with the unit. You're going to have a lot of other programs and 7-on-7s from Dallas, Kansas City, Omaha, Minnesota, Iowa, Tennessee, Louisiana. All of that's going to be there. So there's a ton of talent that's going to all fall down here in Tulsa. And then you've got the Under Armour camp, bunch of 5 stars, Jonah Williams. You got 4-star D lineman Landon Rink. You've got 4-star running back Tory Blaylock. You've got 4-star cornerback. Who am I thinking of here? Colby Sellers, and then several other OU offers. But what are you most looking forward to between the two?
But I think Jonah Williams has to be at the top of the list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you get an opportunity to catch up with the 5-star and the 5-star that OU leads for, it's a big deal.
Yep.
Real interested to see where things sit with Tory Blaylock in his recruitment, because obviously that's a guy that we both have future casted to Oklahoma. Kobe Sellers as well. Going to be good to get some updated intel on him. As far as Tulsa is concerned, man, I'm stoked to see Mason James again. He is the trending favorite for my in-state man crush in 2026. Really love his play, and have gotten to see it. Well, I will have gotten to see it 2 weekends in a row now with the Under Armour camp, and now
Yeah.
at this 7-on-7 event in Tulsa. So he's a guy that I am definitely looking forward to watching. And then Landon Rink is a guy that I've never gone face to face with. And again, we've discussed that one quite a bit. The Texas legacy factor, kind of looming over that recruitment, but yet the Longhorns aren't an official visit destination right now. And Oklahoma's done a really, really good job building relationships there. And, the one thing that has been constant in talking to sources within the Switzer Center is Todd Bates loves him some Landon Rink.
He does. He
So,
does. I remember about 3 months ago when I texted you, I was like, oddly enough, OU feels really good about Landon Rink. And you were like, no way. No way. There's a zero chance. And we both agreed because the text I got was unsolicited, remember? And I was like, this is crazy. Like, they're like, you need to go do this, this, and this. I was like, what? This is crazy that they think that this guy is so good. So, I mean, everybody I talked to is like, you need to go look at this kid. You need to go see how good he is in person, blah, blah, blah. And I've seen him in person. He's a really good player. But the fact that OU is that high on him is just, I mean, and that he's reciprocating it just blows my mind right now. And again, we talked about it on your radio show today. And I said, I just can't. I've seen the Colton Vasek thing play out before. Fool me once, right? Done. Let's get out of October with him still either committed or still really high on OU, and then we can talk. Otherwise, I'm always gonna, even if he does commit, I'm always gonna be a little skittish and a little hesitant to go, yeah, that's a solid commitment, no matter what he says. So, anyways, look, if you want all this information, you want updates on all those players that we talked about, you got to go to OU Insider VIP. You do. OUinsider.com VIP board. You sign up $9.95 a month, $99.95 gets you all that information. You get the spring information. We left out so much spring info. It's not even funny. I've got like a huge update on probably 20 different players and what I'm hearing and what I've been told with quotes and everything all over there on OU Insider VIP. Parker's got numerous recruiting updates. I've got several recruiting updates over there, 25, 26 targets, OU's top targets, who's visited, why they visited, all that type of stuff. We didn't even talk about a new offer that went out in Elgin. Go ahead and say the name. I don't want to butcher it.
Anthony Ogumaro, very much
Ogumaro.
like his odds to end up in Oklahoma's class right now. And he's got an amazing, super cool story worth reading if you're a member over at ouinsider.com.
Yep.
Just released a feature on him this morning. One of the coolest backstories I've ever done on a recruit.
And he moved in from North Carolina to Oklahoma and picked up an offer within weeks. So that ought to tell you anything. So, look, all that OU Insider VIP $9.95 a month. You can just give us a try. Give us a try as you look to see what it's like as spring football goes on, because we get to go watch some of the practices, at least the first 45 minutes to an hour of the practices once or twice a week, starting after spring break. We'll have updates of what we saw, notes, takeaways, just our observations of everything, who's out, who's injured, who looked good, who didn't look good, all that. It'll be right there on OU Insider VIP for you. We'll have updates from all the rivals camps, a few more Under Armour camps we're going to go to, tons of 7-on-7 events, all that will have OU's top targets, the 25, 26 class and 27, all will have updates on OU Insider VIP. So again, give us a try. 1 month. Get through the month of, sign up right now. Get through the month of March and April. See what you like. If you don't like it, you can cancel. Super easy. After that, if you like us, stay with us. I think you will, because official visits start in June. Evaluation period where the coaches get back on the road starts in May. Hey, it's going to be awesome on OU Insider VIP. Or you can just get it over with and sign up for a year, $99.95. Get you a whole year, OU Insider VIP. Also, subscribe to this YouTube channel. We're almost to like 14,600. We would like to get to about 16,000 by the end of spring football. So again, sign up right here, please. We do this because of you. We do this for you. We don't have our job without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And everything you guys do, signing up, whether you subscribe here, watch the videos, or you go and you sign up, all of that really helps us travel. It gives us the money to travel, to go see and continue to bring the awesome information that you get here on this podcast, on our lives, on this channel throughout every one of the podcasts, whether Jesse, Brian, Blake, whoever's doing one. It's all because of you all and because you watch and or are subscribed at OU Insider VIP. So thank you. All right, that's going to do for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed day.